Greetings everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm here with Jerome Sabbagh'S out in Brooklyn, New York City, and he has agreed to show me a few of his favorite recordings from his massive vinyl collection. We're going to look at his hi-fi in a little bit, which is pretty remarkable. Jerome, tell me what all you're up to.
Well, I'm in New York City. I play saxophone. I recently put out a record, which is this. It's a trio record featuring Joe Martin on bass and Al Foster on drums. This is a bit of a dream come true for me because Al Foster is my favorite living drummer and I've been trying to play with him for a long time. For the last couple of years we've been playing live a little bit with this trio, and I was able to get these guys in the studio about a year ago, and the record just came out. It's an all analog record. It was recorded live to 2-track by James Farber at Power Station, which is one of the great studios in New York. And it was recorded live to tape, so half-inch tape at 30 IPS. And all analog means that it's recorded to tape, and the vinyl, which you see here, is cut directly from the tape, so it's never digitized. It never goes through a computer. Bernie Grunman did the mastering and the cutting of this record, and it was pressed at Got a Groove in Cleveland, and it's the first record on an imprint that I just created with my friend, pianist and engineer Pete Randy, and the label is called Analog Tone Factory.
And you have an album previous to this that was also sort of equally hailed. You've really come into your own, not only among jazz fans, but among audiophiles, because your records sound really great. They're very pristine, they're beautiful. The ones recorded at Power Station capture that beautiful Power Station sound. So tell us about the previous record, Vintage, and who's playing on that?
So this is Vintage. This came out about a year ago, and this features Kenny Barron on piano, Joe Martin on bass, and Jonathan Blake on drums. This is also an all analog record. This one was recorded live to multi-track tape, so live meaning, we're all playing in the same room. We actually, for either of these records, we did not wear headphones. We were all listening to each other naturally in the same room, which I think is really important to capture the feel and sound of the type of music we play. And this one was mixed to half-inch tape.
All right, Jerome, we'll have at it, man. Let me see some of your favorite vinyl LPs, and please tell me why.
Okay, so this is a bit of both like super classic selection and some more offbeat things. With that said, this is one of the first records that I got when I got into jazz. This is Art Pepper at the Village Vanguard. There's 4 of them. This is Friday. It is like Friday, I think it's Wednesday, I think it's, maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then there's another one that came out later that's called More for Less at the Village Vanguard. It's all from the same session in 1977. This is Art Pepper on alto saxophone, George Cables on piano, George Mraz on bass, and Elvin Jones on drums. It's Alive at the Vanguard, which, there's a lot of those. I grew up playing alto saxophone and switched to tenor when I moved to America. So alto was my first instrument, and this record is something that I got into because it has a tune called Las Cuevas de Mario, which is a blues in 5/4 that Art Pepper wrote, and it happens to be the very first thing I transcribed. So that record is dear to my heart for that reason, but also because I love the playing on it. And it's not a perfect record, it's raw, it's like warts and all, but there's something like deeply emotional about it. And it's also a really interesting combination of people, because you get Art Pepper in the 70s, so after he went to jail and when he's no longer like the kind of younger alto prodigy that he kind of, came on the scene in the 50s, where there's all these earlier records like Art Pepper Meets the Rhythm Section, Art Pepper Plus 11, and this is later where he's kind of transformed his playing, and Coltrane was a big influence on that. And he's got Coltrane's drummer, Elvin, on drums, and it's kind of like more or less his big return in the mid-70s, sort of the same way Dexter Gordon also had a moment where he came back and like did those live at the Vanguard and played the Vanguard, and he kind of like had a moment also after having a storied career starting in the 50s and 60s with like all those seminal Blue Note records. So I really still love this record, and it kind of has the same kind of emotional effect on me when I listen to it, because it just sounds also like really improvising, and like they're really trying some stuff and they're not afraid to go for it, and it's not polished, but it's really beautiful and raw, and not everybody knows about it. So check it out, Art Pepper, Friday night at the Village Vanguard. This is Criss-Cross by Thelonious Monk. This features Charlie Rouse on tenor, Frankie Dunlop on drums, John Orr on bass. This is one of the first records that I got, and actually the sister record to this, or the brother record to this, however you want to say it, is Monk's Dream. They were partially recorded at the same session for Columbia Records in 1963. And this is, Criss-Cross is the second Monk record on Columbia. Monk's Dream is the first Monk record that I listened to. I don't actually have it on LP, but I do have Criss-Cross. So Monk is like extremely important to me, like just the output, like the music, like all the compositions are seminal, and like I didn't really understand it at first, but I always gravitated to his music.
What are some of those compositions on there?
So on Criss-Cross, Hackensack, T for Two, Criss-Cross, Aronell, Rhythm-a-Ning, Don't Blame Me, which is not a Monk composition, but is a standard, Think of One, Crepuscule with Nelly, and then on Monk's Dream, there's Monk's Dream, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So those are generally compositions that he's recorded before in the 50s, but this is his new quartet and his first Columbia output. So a lot of these records, he re-recorded different versions, sometimes kind of simplified versions in a way of like older tunes. And a lot of people seem to prefer the earlier output. I like all of it, I like every Monk thing that I've ever heard, basically starting in the 40s, all the way to like the 70s. Like I love the London Collection, which is like 3 records recorded in Great Britain. There's like 2 solo ones and a trio one, and those are amazing. Those are also records that I grew up with. So yeah, I wanted to have some Monk in there, also because as a saxophone player, I think Charlie Rouse is hugely underrated. And this is also somebody who I grew up listening to. And yeah, those records are just like really important to me, and they really shaped my understanding of this music and my desire to play it. You can never get enough Monk. Also, these sound really good. It's like Columbia 30th Street Studios. Those are great sounding records.
And why is Monk special to you, and why is he important?
He sounds like no one else. Like he's instantly recognizable. There's like both a beautiful angular lyricism, an incredible sense of rhythm. It swings all the time, and it sounds like no one else. It's the compositions are catchy, they're unique. The way he plays is just so, it just grabs me. It's like I could listen to this like for hours and hours, and like those records, like I wore them out. Like I really listened to them a lot. I happened to have listened to Monk's Dream just recently when I was kind of preparing for this interview, and it grabs me just as much now as it did when I was 15 years old. Like it really stands the test of time in the same way that like, a great writer like Shakespeare or any of the classic writers might stand the test of time. Like it remains timeless, and its impact is never diminished. And it's irrespective of style. Like it transcends style, and it transcends everything. It just grabs me. All right, so this is one of the classics. This is Sonny Rollins' saxophone Colossus. Tommy Flanagan on piano, Doug Watkins on bass, Max Roach on drums. That's the first Sonny record I got. It's the first Sonny record a lot of people get. I guess that and the Village Vanguard one.
Is that right? That's the one people usually get off the bat?
When I was growing up, those were the two that they were kind of the starter Sonny records, and then the Bridge, which is a little later, it was like Jim Hall and that's like early 60s. I think it's 1962. But those were the ones for me, and Way Out West also, but that came a little later. I mean, there's a bunch of them. They're all great. But that's a seminal record. St. Thomas, of course, is like the super famous composition, but all of it, like there's the You Don't Know What Love Is, which is like a fantastic ballad, Strode Road. Like the hookup between Sonny and Max is like iconic. Like the Max intro on St. Thomas is iconic. It's also a great sounding record. And, Sonny is... in a way, for me, it's still to this day the pinnacle of a certain aspect of saxophone playing. Like,
why is that over like a Coltrane? I'm just curious. I mean, not that one isn't better than the other, but how do they differ, and how does their output differ for you as a tenor saxophonist?
Well, to me, Sonny kind of perfects and transcends the bebop language. Like he comes out of Bird, but he also comes out of Coleman Hawkins. There's a sense of playfulness. There's like a melodic inventiveness. There's like a rhythmic authority, which is stunning. Like you get the feeling you could put him with any drummer, and he would just kind of pull the drummer with him. You get the feeling like his time is what's making the whole band, even when he plays with some of the great drummers such as Max or others. And he's had the best drummers over time. Like we were talking about Al Foster earlier. Like Al played with Sonny, Billy Drummond played with Sonny, Jack DeJohnette plays with Sonny. Like all the greatest drummers of all eras. He's had the best of them. But his own sense of rhythm is one of the wonders in this music. And also, he's someone who can play bebop, but he doesn't play cliches. There are things that might come back a little bit, like certain things, but it never feels formalistic. It always feels like pure improvising, including when it's done at breathneck speed. And that to me is very inspiring. Like, there's another record which I love but don't have on LP. It's the one that I think is called Live in Denmark, or
one of the recent Record Store Day things.
Actually, I know it from its previous incarnation on Dragon Records, but I believe it's part of that box set that just came out. Yeah, so there's a version of There'll Never Be Another You on there that I transcribed. That's just like, it's just fantastic. That's with Henry Grimes on drums and Pete LaRocca. Henry Grimes on bass and Pete LaRocca on drums, and that's a stunning. I don't know if anybody's ever kind of played the saxophone. I mean, I don't want to get into that, but it's like, it's incredibly good saxophone playing, and it's incredibly good improvising in a language that a lot of other people, in a way, it's become kind of standardized, and he transcends the language because he's so inventive and so authoritative with his rhythm and his melodies and his incredible ideas that come all the time. It's like, you know, there's records of Sonny where like he plays for 20 minutes. There's like a live in Aix-en-Provence, France, with Kenny Clark and drums that I don't know if it's on that box set that just came out or not. It might be. I don't have the box set. But yeah, you know, old Sonny between like, you know, late 50s and you know, to the end of the 60s is just stunning in its inventiveness all around. And the rest is great too. I mean, he's somebody that I grew up listening to. Like, I first saw him play live when I was 15 years old. And, you know, over the years I've probably seen him, I don't know, 15 times or something. And he's an incredible live performer and plays for really long, is very generous with his music, and he will always be an inspiration. We just talked about Sonny. We gotta talk about Train. I mean, any numbers of Train records I could have picked. This is the classic quartet: McCoy Tyner on piano, Jimmy Garrison on bass, Elvin Jones on drums. This is Crescent, 1963, I believe, or 64. It says 64. First Train record I really kind of grew up with was Blue Train, which is a more bebop record in like an earlier period. It's on Blue Note. This is on Impulse, recorded by Rudy Van Gelder. Great sounding record. So is Blue Train. To me, like, Blue Train comes out of bebop. I guess it's, maybe you can call it hard bop, or it's like Train's own kind of interpretation of that. He's clearly coming out of that. You know, I'm not sure I want to put a label on it, but certainly it sounds different than this. And with this, I guess it's what people might call his middle period, where it's not yet like, there's still time in this. There's not quite yet the kind of freer stuff that he would go with, like records like Kulus and Mama and Ascension and Transition. So there's still time, and it's just like one of the most like poetic albums in a way. Like, I can listen to that again. It never loses its impact and its beauty, and it's one of the, you know, classic Train records. The sound of the horn is incredible. It's like a completely different sound than like Sonny or Stan Getz or Dexter Gordon, even though Train kind of comes out of Dexter. I think one thing that I love about the tenor saxophone is the sheer variety of sounds that you can get on it. And like, when you think that all these people play the same instrument, let's say like Sonny, Stan, Dexter, Joe Anderson, Lester Young, Coleman Hawkins, Michael Brecker, Jan Garbarek, Mark Turner, like, it's incredible, like the variety of expression that you can get out of this instrument, and it's something that definitely drew me to the instrument, and I love most of these sounds. Like, it's, you know, you definitely got to pick and choose and figure out your own sound, but it's inspiring to hear the variety of expression. So anyway, this is one of the great seminal classic records, and again, it's like, it never loses its impact. So if you don't know this record, probably most of the people on this channel do know this record, but if you don't know, you know, you should definitely get it, and if you do know it, you can listen to it again. All right, now for something different. This is Abbey Lincoln, and this is a record called That's Him. And this is the only record, I mean, I'm ready to be corrected here, but this is the only record I'm aware of that has Sonny Rollins playing behind the singer. It's got Sonny Rollins, Kenny Dorham, Paul Chambers, Wynton Kelly, and Max Roach. This is one of Abbey Lincoln's first record in the late 50s. It's for Riverside. It also sounds great. This one is a mono Japanese reissue of it from either the 70s or the 80s that sounds great. I also have a beat up original somewhere. The reason I picked this is a record that I discovered later in life, but I love this record. And Abbey Lincoln was somebody who was very important to me because I saw her live a couple of times. So she was older. She had done a string of record, I think for Verve, or like there was a French imprint of that was related to Verve that was called Gitane Jazz. And she did a record called You Gotta Pay the Band, which has Stan Getz on it and Charlie Hayden, and she did some stuff with Hank Jones, and she used to play in Paris where I grew up quite a bit, so I saw her a few times at the New Morning, and she was a mesmerizing presence. She was sorry about that, man. Yeah, she was a mesmerizing presence as a singer. Her voice wasn't the same, but you know, she just commanded the stage, and I'm someone who is very influenced by the sound of voice, and I find singers to be as inspiring to me than saxophone players. Like I draw inspiration from different instrumentalists, you know, whether they're trumpet players or pianists or particularly singers, and not only jazz singers. Like you know, I also grew up listening to a lot of flamenco music. Like the flamenco singer Cameron was a very important early inspiration for me. So this is a fantastic record. It's also a really interesting record because there's like an a cappella track on it, which in the 50s was not something that was routinely done. So yeah, it's a pretty kind of daring record, and yep, if you don't know this, you should check it out. Abbey Lincoln, that's him. Okay, this is Miles and Train, live in Stockholm, 1960. This is the first classic Miles quintet with Wynton Kelly, Paul Chambers, and Jimmy Cobb. The reason I picked this, it's a great recording, and it's also an opportunity to hear this band live. And you really hear how much of a band they were, like the little arrangements, the interplay, how much Train stretches. There's like an incredible solo on Green Dolphin Street on this, where he takes like one motive at one point and like he develops it and develops it and develops it, and it's like, it's really great to hear. It's a really important solo for me, and the rhythm section is so hooked up. It's so swinging. It really sounds great. And one of the points that I want to make is one of the things that interests me the most in this music is the fact that it's band music. So it's not just like a great soloist with a rhythm section or a pickup band. It's like, to me, the best of this music is often real bands. And you know, whether you think about, you know, the first Miles Quintet, the second Miles Quintet, the Bill Evans Trio, the Keith Jarrett Trio, the John Coltrane Quartet, like those are all bands that lasted, you know, a fair amount of time. And even if it was just a few years, at that time, a few years meant working all the time, playing 3, 4, 5 sets a night, depending on the places. Engagements in New York were much longer. So those bands, they played a lot, and you hear that, and I think that's what makes part of these records so great. All right, so we're staying with Miles. This is a late Miles record, and this is one that I got when it came out, you know, and I was lucky to see a version of this band live twice, and you know, that remains like an incredible memory for me. I love this record. This is a pretty arranged record. Most of the tunes are by Marcus Miller. This is Miles Davis' Amandla. I believe that's 1989. It's one of Miles's last record. To me, that's like a late Miles masterpiece. Like, it's same thing. It's a record, like I put it on, I listened to the whole thing. The production is incredible. The sound is incredible. I think this was recorded by Bill Schnee. It was mastered by Doug Sax. It sounds stunning. It also has Kenny Garrett on saxophone, who was also somebody I love, still love, but like particularly when he was younger at that time, like the way he came on the scene, that was a different kind of sound on alto, and there was something really kind of, which really kind of grabbed you. Like, same thing, the rhythmic authority, I talked about Sonny earlier, but to me Kenny Garrett has that too. Of course Miles has it, and his playing on this album is great. Like, he sounds great on trumpet. And I love the tunes. I love the arrangements. To me, it's like a complete, artistic statement. And it's like, a lot of people talk about Tudu. Like, I like Tudu also, but to me, that's the record. Okay, now, well, I'm big on Miles, as this selection shows. This is an earlier Miles record, late 50s, Miles Ahead. That's the original cover. I think it's the original. I think I've got the original first pressing of this. Yeah. Gil Evans arranging, Miles playing flugelhorn. It's a super lyrical, beautiful record, and one that, same thing. Is like, if I put it on, I can't really stop. Like, I just listen to the whole thing. To me, it's a perfect record. It's lyrical, it's beautiful, and one thing about Miles is, like, to me, his playing is very very vocal. It's like I can hear. It's like, I mentioned earlier that I love singers. Like, I hear that same quality in Miles's playing with everything he does. In the same way, like, you listen to a Louis Armstrong record, and like he might be playing the trumpet, and the next minute he's singing, and he sounds exactly the same on trumpet and when he sings. Like, you can really hear, like, the relationship. So I hear that same kind of quality in most of the great players that I admire, and certainly Miles is, like, really exemplifies that. Everything he does is supremely lyrical, incredible sound, and incredible rhythm, timing, sense of space, sense of pace, sense of drama. It's kind of the whole package.
This is unusual. I don't know anything about this record.
All right, this is Stan Getz and G.J. Johnson at the Opera House. This is a live 50s thing. Is Oscar Peterson, Ray Brown, Herb Ellis, and Connie Kay. This is also a record that I discovered later in life, but I had to have some Stan Getz in there. The records that I grew up with were some of the later ones, and they're either not on vinyl or I don't have them. So I'm talking about Voyage. I think Voyage is on vinyl, and that's Kenny Barron, George Mraz, and Victor Lewis. And later there's a couple of records all called Anniversary and Serenity, and that's the same band but with Rufus Reid on bass. So Kenny Barron, Rufus Reid, Victor Lewis. And this is about the time that I saw Stan Getz in Paris. Saw him a couple of times. And that was a big influence on me, still is a big influence on me in terms of melody, lyricism, and sound. So then I went back and kind of got a lot of the older records, like this Stan Getz one with the Oscar Peterson Trio one is a great one. This is a great one, and it's also cool because it's live and you can hear them stretching, and it's also a great sounding record. And I think I've got the original of this. This is a Verve mono record. But the thing about Stan is, like, it's a very distinctive sound, And it's also, like Miles, an ability to be super lyrical and play a melody beautifully, and everything he plays is, it's the right thing in the right place. Like there's like a certain kind of like, singable, lyrical, melodic quality to it, and an incredible sound that it's a big inspiration for me. This is Michael Brecker's second record under his name. It's called Don't Try This at Home. It's got a bunch of people on it. It's kind of different on every track, but it's got Jack DeJohnette on drums. It's got Adam Nussbaum on drums. Don Grolnick is on some of it. Charlie Hayden is on some of it. Mike Stern is on some of it. Herbie is on some of it. This is a record that I grew up listening to at the time, and at the time, like, the two, I think, maybe biggest in a way saxophone players that you were seeing live on the scene were Michael Brecker and Branford Marsalis. And I saw both of them live quite a bit, and those were very influential in tenor players when I started playing. And just to be able to play the saxophone this well, I could have picked any number of Brecker recordings, but the first one, which is just called Michael Brecker on Impulse, and this one, which is also on Impulse when Impulse got revived in, I guess, the late 80s or early 90s, those were records that I listened to like a lot. Like the compositions are great, and the saxophone playing, just to play the saxophone this well, like I don't play like that at all, and it's not necessarily like the sound that I always prefer, but I still love this record, and that's a record that had a lot of impact on my generation and a lot of impact on me personally, because there's a few times where I saw people live play saxophone. Like I saw Brecker doing this. I saw Joe Henderson also one time, where you listen to these people play, and it's kind of like, just on a sheer technical level, ability to play the horn, it's just otherworldly good. Okay, so we're talking about Joe Henderson, and this is not a Joe Henderson record, but he's on it. This is McCoy Tyner, the real McCoy, Joe Henderson, and Ron Carter on bass, Elvin Jones on drums, which is not a combination that's that documented. There's a few records where they're on together, but it's not, there's a ton of like Jimmy Garrison, Elvin Jones records, and there's a ton of like Ron Carter, Tony Williams records. There's not a ton of Ron Carter, Elvin Jones records, and this is a record where they're together. It sounds amazing. 1964, I think. I have to double check that, but and the music is fantastic. The energy on this record, the compositions, the whole thing, that like, that really left an impact on me. It's one of the classic records. It's one that I can, again, it's a complete statement. Like, I put it on, I just want to finish it. And I guess I've been saying this a little bit, but I wanted to expand upon this a little bit, in the sense that like, I'm still someone that who like really likes to listen to like a complete record. Like, I like the idea of like putting something start to finish. The sequence of tunes is important. The pacing, side A, side B, since we're talking about vinyl, that's something that I try to emulate and that I work on when trying to make my own records, is like, having a complete statement, having something that keeps you on your toes, where like one tune flows into the next, maybe in an unexpected way, but in a way that like keeps the listener's attention. And a lot of the great records, to me, they have that, and in this day and age it's harder to kind of come by, because a lot of us, we consume music in the digital world, and like if you're on Apple Music or whatever it is, like it's very easy to kind of go from one thing to the next and not listen to a record, and it's entirety.
Okay, and our final vinyl album of the day is...
Okay, I gotta have some Keith Jarrett in there. This is Keith Jarrett Standards Volume 1. It was the trio with Gary Peacock and Jack DeJohnette. This is maybe this and Standards Live are the two first Keith records that I owned. And, you know, seminal band for me. I saw them live a bunch of time. Then I went back and checked out a lot of his earlier music, and I love both the European quartet and the American quartet from the 70s. The American quartet is like Dewey Redman and Paul Motion and Charlie Hayden, and the European quartet was Garbrek and Palle Danielson and Jon Christensen. So I love a lot of like Keith's music. This is more the trio where they play standards, which was also a real band and which I got to see live quite a bit. And, you know, big inspiration in terms of lyricism, piano sound, and also having a band sound. Like if you, whether it's this trio or any of the two aforementioned quartets, those are bands that really are instantly recognizable, played, you know, for a fair amount of time, have their own sound and really have their own music, and that's something I really believe in. And also just like Keith's piano playing is just so, you know, beautiful, lyrical, fluid. The ideas are incredible. You know, it's still at its best. It's still an incredible inspiration, and there's so many of these records that, like, you know, it's easy to kind of get lost in that discography because like there's a ton of trio records, like there's a ton of stuff in the 70s, like a lot of it is really great, but so in a way it's easy to kind of overlook them because there's so many of them. But that was an important, and it's still an important influence for me. You know, I wish I had Standards Live in vinyl, but I don't. But that's one that I, you know, like listen to like all the time.
Me too. Yeah.
And that really holds up for me today.